What is up everyone, Vex30 here, coming at you with an older series brought back from the grave. Today we are doing a champ chat on Pip. The main purpose of champ chats is just to take time and talk about the champion. What is good, what is bad, what works, what does not, what I would change, and just anything else I want to talk about pertaining to the champion. These videos will be divided into two parts. Part 1 being giving some facts and builds about the champion, and part 2 is just me talking about the champion, giving my opinions of what I think about them. With all that being said, let's jump right into part 1 of this video. What is up everyone? Let's get into this more factual part of this video. We're going to talk about who Pip is, what he does, what helps him do it, and then the next part we'll talk about our opinions on everything we're really discussing and we're showing off here. So Pip is a champion. He is a really old champion in the game. He's seen a lot of variations and changes, but now in his form, he is this weird mix of a support and damage dealer. He does both. He can support and deal damage and flank. I know a lot of people say do flank Pip. I don't consider a flank. I think any champion in the game can flank. I think some are better than others, but I don't call Androxus a flanker. I call him a damage dealer because that's what he does. Because he can sit there and deal damage, and then he has more opportunities to flank because of his mobility. But like I said, I think any champion can flank in the game. So Pip can do a lot of different things. Let's first talk about his abilities and his legendaries. So in 2.01, they got rid of Mischief, which they should have. Mischief wasn't very good. It was fun, but it wasn't good. They kept Mega Potion, Catalyst, and Combat Medic. Let's first talk about Mega Potion. Mega Potion heals allies for 100% more, and that works off his Healing Potion, his only heal ability. Throw a Healing Potion that heals teammates for 1200 health when it explodes. Reactivating the ability will instantly cause the Healing Potion to explode. Now, Mega Potion has always been in and out of the meta. Doing 2400 healing is great, right? But having an 8-second cooldown on it isn't very good. Now, he has a card that augments that, and we'll talk about that next. But the point still stands. It is a long cooldown, and it's an AoE. It's a radius-based ability, so you can't heal your teammates across the map. Catalyst. Targets hit with Explosive Flask are marked for 3 seconds. Take 40% increased damage with your weapon shots. Now, honestly, I think this is the main legendary when it comes to Pip. I don't think he's a good support, but I think he is a good damage dealer. Because Catalyst is amazing. You do 840 damage per shot. And if you right click and then shoot, and you can get 3 of those off. You can do 840 to one person over and over and over. That's a lot of damage. That's about 25 something, 2500 something. That's some insane damage when it comes to a support. A champion that's classified as a support. Catalyst combined with, let's talk about Explosive Flasks for a second. It works off of this. Fire an Explosive Flask that deals 150 damage and slows enemies for 50%, by 50% for 2.5 seconds. So this ability by itself is really good, but when you combine it with Catalyst, you can really start pumping out the damage as Pip. And Combat Medic. Potion Launcher now heals allies. I thought this change was amazing at first. I liked the idea. It was good on paper, but practically it's not as good. Because when you think about it, no matter how good you are with Pip, no matter how many times you tell me I won't miss ever a Drogos or Andro flying there, you're lying. You will miss a Drogos or like an Andro flying. You will have heals body blocked by teammates standing in front of you because you're shooting an AoE projectile. It happens. So in practicality, this legendary is pretty weak. We'll talk about that in the next part. So let's get into his loadouts. So there's 3 different things I want to do with this. Or a couple things. I want to show 4 different builds. First thing first is a couple cards that I think needs buff. Pep in the Step. This card is not in line with other supports at all. The 1.5 is the main reason. It should last for 2 to 3 seconds. And if that was the case, I think Pip would be more viable. Shrewd Move. I don't know why it's 8%. It should be 10%. It's a weird number and it's out of line with other champions. I don't get it. And the final 3 cards we're going to talk about is really important cards to supports. Gift Giver, Reload, and Medicinal Excellence. This is super important whenever you're running support builds. These aren't as important though. These 2 cards are the main focus here because I think these need buffed. Shrewd Move and Pep in the Step are 2 cards that need buffed on Pip, and if they do get buffed, it helps them tenfold. Now let's talk about a couple of more damage dealing abilities, damage dealing loadouts on Pip. First one is what I call Selfish Flash. This is something you are in it for yourself. You are a flanker, you are a damage dealer, you are fragging. You are an escape artist, so you have 30% DR during weightless. Acumen, you get the life steal off your right click, as well as the catalyst, so you're doing more damage and life stealing when you right click. Smithereens, getting 1 ammo when you right click is great. If you have 3 ammo or 2 ammo, you hit a right click, you have 3 shots. You have your 3 shots you need to get the full damage out of catalyst. From above, you're running escape artist in this build, so running cooldown off weightless is always a great thing. And Moxie 5. Moxie is a card that I kept saying over and over needs nerfed before this patch drops, because we're running into a sustain meta, and Moxie is insane on Pip. Moxie is one of the reasons why Pip damage dealer is insane, because 50% increased healing below 50 on a 1200 heal, even with caught 3 on you, you're still healing for a decent bit. You're still healing for about, what is about 300, 400 health? So it's still pretty good. You still get that heal off, even under caught 3. But this is for a selfish damage. This is more of a team oriented. So say you're an off support, but you want to run catalyst, you can still output a decent bit of healing with this build, as well as help your team, help yourself and fight for yourself. I still run side tanks with this because you're not playing as aggressive. You're playing a more passive build. So you're going to run side tanks and get that extra, those right clicks off more often. Moxie 3. If I were to change this build, I would probably do something like this. I would probably go with Moxie 5, side tanks 5, Smithereens 1, Gift Giver. Because you're running a team oriented, you're throwing your potion at allies. Gift Giver is important. Because you're not healing yourself as often, you're healing allies, and you're running Reload in this build so you can get your healing potion up more often to save your allies and help them out too. Let's talk about the final 2 builds. The Mega Potion build, which is this. Reload 5, Medicinal 5, Gift Giver 3, Moxie 1, and Smithereens 1. Reload and Medicinal are the 2 100% needed with Mega Potion. Reload reduces the cooldowns for 3 seconds for each ally hit. There's really no reason not to run this. You need this card to make healing Mega Potion viable. If you don't run this card, it's not good. It's really that simple. And Medicinal Excellence, since you have 1 healing source and you're trying to heal as many allies as you can, running increased radius on it will always help. Gift Giver, it's an obvious. Moxie, Smithereens, those are just 1-point cards. You can probably trade those out with whatever you want. And last but not least, let's talk about a Combat Medic build. I know this card's going to be weird to some of you, but Acrobat Trick. Because you're using your auto attacks to heal, reload speed actually helps Pip a lot. You get more healing more often with this. His reload time is not very good, so when you have an increased 35%, you are consistently healing and healing faster and healing more often. Reload, even though this is based, Combat Medic is based on his auto attacks, running Reload, having the potion up more often gives you multiple sources of healing. Gift Giver, it's, it's a necessity. Moxie, you can keep yourself sustained with your healing potion all the time to make sure you don't die. And From Above, it's just a 1-point card you can trade out with anything. But here's some, those are some facts about Pip. Those are some builds. And now let's get on to the opinion talk about Pip, where we're going to talk about some of these builds. We're going to talk about these legendaries, and we're just going to give a talk about Pip and how I feel about him right now. So let's jump right into it. So Pip is one of those champions who's the jack of all trades but master of none. He is a support, he is a damage dealer, he has flank potential, he can do a lot of different things, but he's not the master of any of them. He's good at one and he's okay at others, but he's not great and amazing at anything. So let's first talk about Catalyst. Let's talk about his damage dealing potential, and then we're going to talk about his 2 support legendaries afterwards. So Catalyst. Catalyst is one of those legendaries that's really interesting to me, and I've always been surprised why it's not in the meta. Because when you combine that plus Pip's ultimate, he's insane damage dealer. And in a meta where CC is amazing coming into 2.01 with crowd control reduction cards gotten rid of, Pip should be even better because his ultimate is basically a free kill on any tank. At least early game before they bought a resilience. Now, when you have a champion like Pip, who has a slow, a heal, a CC ultimate, an amazing getaway ability, plus a legendary that gives him 840 damage per auto attack for about 3 auto attacks, you would think he would be extremely good in the meta. And he has cards like Moxie that keep him alive. And I think he's going to be. I think Pip as a damage dealer will be meta. On paper, there is no reason that he's not. He brings everything to the table and he fits all the criteria that really propel champions forward in 2.01, which is crowd control. That's it. Crowd control is just amazing in this meta because there are no built-in crowd control reduction cards. So Pip as a damage dealer is awesome. I think Catalyst is amazing. I think he has a real chance to be a high priority. I wouldn't say first ban, first pick. But I would think he's a higher priority when it comes to drafts. He does extreme amount of damage, great CC, especially with his slow and his explosive flask. I really hope to see Pip in the meta when it comes to damage dealing. But this is an issue when we're talking about this next part. His support legendaries. Now, he has 2 of them. He has Mega Potion and he has Combat Medic. Let's talk about Mega Potion first. Mega Potion is, how do I say, not good. It has a 1 use case, I think. The only case I could see you running Mega Potion is you have 3 tanks. That's an issue. If you have one case for running Pip and that's having 3 tanks, that's not going to happen very often. So that makes Mega Potion near just not usable. And the main issue with Mega Potion is it limits you to 1 healing source. Pip already has 1 healing source base, right? And Mega Potion buffs that 1 healing source. When you look at champions in this game, right? Let's talk about the other supports just for a second. Furia, running Solar Blessing, 2 healing sources is high priority in the meta. Grok, only way he is good is when you run Spirit's Domain. Everybody thinks Healing Totems, it's not very good. Healing Totem is not very good. When we do the Grok Champ Chap, I will explain why. Grover, he technically has 1 healing source, but he has a passive heal and he has a burst heal. He has 2 different ways of using his healing source. Genos is not very high in the meta, has 1 healing source. Even though he can spread it around allies, it still limits him. Damba had multiple healing sources, very much meta. Ying, multiple healing sources, was meta for a long time. Saris, 1 healing source. Hasn't been in the meta, hasn't been played very often. Pip hasn't been playing very often, 1 healing source. There's a pattern here. It is very important for you to have multiple healing sources as a support. Keeping your whole team healed, not just a couple people, is super important. It's just how the game goes. It's how games like this go. He's just, with Mega Potion, 1 healing source, even though it's a high burst heal, it's just not enough to be usable. I think it has 1 case, and at least it's better than Combat Medic, because Combat Medic, on paper, according to what I just said, now has multiple healing sources. He should be viable, right? But the issue with this one is it's not practical. Healing Potion now heals allies. Wow, I can auto them and heal them with my potion. That should be great. No, it's not, because it's your auto attacks. Pip shoots lobbed projectiles, not just projectiles that fire straight like Drogo's. It is a lobbed projectile. So there's so many practical issues. So say you're shooting at a Drogos or Andro in the air, trying to heal them. You're not going to hit every shot on them. No matter what you say, how good you are at Pip, you're not going to hit every shot. So based on my standards, it should be good, but it's not. Too many practical issues. Too many ways for allies to body block. They needed to buff it. It's really that simple. Combat Medic needed a buff. It's the same thing with Spirit's Domain when it comes to Grok, but Grok's got a buff. Why didn't Combat Medic? That didn't make any sense to me. Combat Medic should have a buff. And there's two things I think they do to Combat Medic to buff it. One, piercing allies. If Combat Medic pierced allies and healed them as it goes through them, if you can heal multiple allies, say teammates are lined up in front of you, right? You go through both of them and then it lands on a third ally and hits them with the explosion. You should heal both for 600 and the final one for 600. Or heal the first two for 400 and then the final one for 600. There's so many different ways to make Combat Medic interesting and more viable. You could increase the projectile speed on it. That would make it more viable. You can increase the heal on it, so the benefit outweighs the risk. There's so many ways they could have buffed Combat Medic, but they didn't. I still, to this day, which, I mean, the patch notes have been only dropped for like less than a month, but to this day, do not understand why Combat Medic was not buffed. There's so many different ideas you can use, so many different things you can do with Combat Medic. It's just, there's a world of possibilities. It's frustrating to think about. It should have been buffed. It's Pip's only viable healing option. Again, good in theory, but bad practically. If it's not going to get buffed, Pip is not going to be viable as a support. And honestly, I reworked this video, okay? To be honest, I reworked this video a few times because first time I only talked about support capabilities of Pip. And in that video, I talked about the same thing over and over. But now, if you can talk about the damage like I did in this video, Pip has multiple options, which is the only reason Pip can be played is because he has damage. He can be a damage dealer with a catalyst, but as a support, his role. Pip is classified as a support. If he can't even do his role properly, there is a problem. I love the fact that supports in this game have multiple options. Take Overwatch for instance. When you get on and you play Mercy, you are playing Mercy. You are flying around, auto-aim healing somebody and buffing their damage, and then ulting and resurrecting people. You know, when you get in the game, that's all you're doing is Mercy. When you get in the game as Pip, you're like, what do I want to do today? Do I want to have a big burst heal? Do I want to do damage? Do I want to flank? Do I want to try to hit autos on allies? There's so many different options for supports in this game, but that causes issue when it comes to balance. And I think Hi-rez understands that, based on the changes they made in 2.01 by getting rid of one of the legendaries. That's going to help balancing in the future and the present. But hopefully next patch they take a look at Combat Medic and they make a buff to it, because there's so many different ways you can buff it, to be honest. And the final thing I want to note on Pip is his ultimate. We haven't really touched on it, we haven't talked about it, and it deserves to be talked about. Should have probably been one of the first things I talked about, because it's the most important thing on him and the only reason he is even considered being played at all. Evil Mojo. That's what it's called. You throw a flask that turns people into chickens with a max health of 1500 on the chicken, or a flat health 1500 on any chicken for 4 seconds. And in a CC heavy meta, this ultimate is amazing because people don't have early game crowd control reduction. They have to buy resilience later on. So this ultimate is amazing, but he's so limited on his legendaries when it comes to support. Now, when you combine that with Catalyst Pip is an amazing damage dealer, but combine it with his support legendaries, he's a bad support with a great ultimate, and that just doesn't make for a good support. So I hope everyone enjoyed this champion chat. I'm glad I could take some time to talk about Pip today, and I hope you learned something from this video. I kind of formatted it differently. At the beginning, I decided I wanted to talk about builds a little bit, because I think they are important on every single support and champion. I think more time should be devoted to talking about builds and cards than I do in some of these. So we're gonna see if everyone likes this, let me know. I went over the builds and then I went over afterwards, like we talked about their opinions, we talked about Pip, we talked about why we think he's viable, why he's not viable, what legendaries are good. So let me know how you like this format. Champion chats are honestly one of the more fun things for me to do on YouTube because it lets me just sit here and talk to you guys and talk to you about what I think about, like giving my opinions. It's fun to just sit here and have a conversation with myself, but I know I'm talking, you know, I'm gonna read comments later on and have a conversation about it. But this video has gone on too long. You know, like I said, I love doing this stuff, so sometimes it goes on a bit longer, but there's a lot of information to put in here. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I also hope you enjoy your day, night, evening, morning, dawn, dusk, or whatever it is where you live. And I will see you in the next one. Later. And a huge thanks to my Patreon supporters, Captain Splashclaw, Joshua Branchflower.